Hey friends and book lovers, welcome. So as you know, today's video is my August TBR. These are all the books that I will be reading in the month of August. So now here on this part of the booktube community, I read mostly fantasy with some sci-fi, some contemporary, and now newly some classics. So I'm really excited to talk to you about the books that I'm reading in the month of August. I hope to get to all of these. I am not always successful with my TBRs, but I try. I aim really high, and I try very hard to be as successful as possible. So this month should hopefully be no different. If you watch my TBRs on a regular basis, you might see some familiar book covers because those are the ones that I did not get to in previous months and that I'm trying to get to for the month of August. So the first one I'm going to mention is part of a read-along that I'm hosting with 3 other lovely co-hosts. The first one being Stephanie over at Miss Richard Reads, Kate over at the Almost Book Doctor, and Sharon from Sharon Dwyer. I will link all their channels down below so you can check them out and see their read-along announcements, and I will link my read-along announcement down below as well in case you want to check that out and get more details. But for the month of August, we are starting with the first third of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, and I am super excited. I actually haven't read any of his novels before. I've seen movies, I've seen renditions of the stories that he's written done over and over again, but I've actually never read his own works. And this is one that I've always been really curious about. I've always loved the movie. I understand that it's very Hollywoodized and it's been a little bit modified for Hollywood effects, and this is a bit different, or in some cases for some people much different. But I've still heard amazing things and I still want to read it. We are reading the unabridged version for the months of August, September, and October. We're starting with the first third in August, and I am very intrigued. This is the Barnes & Noble version, so it should be unabridged like the other ones, but there's also a gorgeous word cloud edition that I will probably also purchase because I love the way classics look. They're always just so stunning. And this is supposed to be a very compelling story about revenge and love and persistence and resilience, and it has so many things that I can't wait to explore within this novel. And of course, one of my goals this year was to read more classics, so that is also one good thing that's coming out of this read-along. The next one I will mention is the Long Price Quartet. I am still continuing on with this. I am still in the first one, but I'm hoping to catch up or at least read the first one by the beginning of August so that I can at least go on to the second one, which is A Betrayal in Winter, I believe. So far, so good. It's definitely very different than anything I've ever read, so it's taking me a little bit of time to get into it and just to understand, but I think that's kind of the point. You don't understand everything at first and you just have to be okay with that. I usually am, and in this case I'm still okay with it. I just feel like I'm lost at parts. So hopefully as I read more into it I will continue and begin to understand, because things are happening but I still feel that I'm still very close to the beginning of the quartet, that I don't have a very good understanding of what's going on. So very excited for this, and I know that other friends are reading this and doing a read along, so if I can find that link I'll try to post it below, so if anyone wants to jump in on this read along you can definitely do so. The next one I'm reading is basically because everyone is reading it in August and I want to read it in August, and I didn't realize how popular an August buddy read of this book was going to be, but it's on like 3 or 4 separate discords, like 2 different channels, and I know a movie is coming out about it, so I think that's what all the push is for. So I'm gonna try to get to this chunker in August, and that is Dune by Frank Herbert. Now I've never read Dune before. I got this stunning copy because I have a feeling that I'll really enjoy it. And this is a sci-fi novel. Funny story though, I have played the computer game for this, but I've never read the book. So I'm really curious to see if any of the elements from the computer game will come back to me as I'm reading this. Super intrigued. I've heard really amazing things about this. I don't think I've ever heard that people haven't enjoyed it. I've heard most of the people really did enjoy it, but that sometimes the sequels that Frank Herbert's son wrote might not be up to par. But then again, mixed reviews there, but overall really positive reviews for Dune, the original story in general. It's also just a really gorgeous copy with like really cool end papers, like an epic sci-fi story on this remote planet, super futuristic sounding, and it just sounds like the atmosphere is going to be set really well in this. So I'm hoping that I can get to it. I'm excited to read it. I want to have this in my wheelhouse to have already read. I feel like this is basically a sci-fi classic, so I want to experience what the story is like and what all the fuss is about for this one. The next one is actually a sequel, and this one is The Bitter Twins by Jen Williams. This is part of the Winnowing Flames trilogy, and I've heard really amazing things about this. I know that Elle here on BookTube has really loved this series and really highly recommends it. I have read The Ninth Reign and it was not what I thought it was going to be, but it was really, really good, and I'm just so happy that it's not what I thought it was going to be, because it was not the cookie cutter fantasy that I was expecting. Even though I love fantasies that go kind of the same way as other books, and I love retellings, but it was so different and at the same time incorporated elements from other books that I really, really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to see what the continuation is going to be in The Bitter Twins, because Ninth Reign leaves you on a bit of a question mark of like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen next? Because you're in this dire situation in the world. So I'm really excited. I'm gonna be buddy reading this with Joanna over at Jonah Sausa, and we will be doing a live show, I think sometime early in October, to discuss the trilogy with maybe some other special guests. So stay tuned for that coming out, and if you want to participate in maybe buddy reading it with us, let me know. We can set something up. But The Ninth Reign was amazing, and if you're thinking about reading this trilogy, I think you definitely should. I can definitely recommend the first one, and I am very excited to jump into this. Ninth Reign is very difficult to explain, so I'm not going to try to go into explaining it, but I would encourage you to look up the synopsis on Goodreads and check it out for yourselves. It doesn't give you much information. It's kind of one of the N.K. Jemisin synopses that doesn't really give you a ton, but it's still really intriguing and kind of confusing. So if you like not knowing too much about a book before going into it like I do, these synopses are really great. And I can't begin to recommend the first one enough, and I cannot wait to finally dive into this one because it's been a month overdue. So this next one is really interesting because I have read the first 4 books of this huge epic series when I was in middle school. Now, I'm not really sure what I was doing. I had no business in middle school reading this epic fantasy series. It is insane. It was so slow paced for a very hyper anxious little middle schooler like me who liked things very fast paced, but I still found that I enjoyed it and was intrigued that I kept continuing on in the story. So that bodes well for adult me who's okay with a slower paced novel. And this is also a buddy read over at Greg's channel, and I will link him down below. He reads a lot of nonfiction, a lot of political nonfiction, and really well versed in that, but he also reads quite a bit of fantasy. So I'm very excited to restart this journey and read it along with other friends. We'll be reading it at the same time because I feel like that's the way to do this. And then also, speaking of classics, this one is basically a fantasy classic, and that would be The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This was started by Robert Jordan and then finished off by Brandon Sanderson. So I think it's like 14 or 15 books in total, and Brandon Sanderson wrote the last like 5 or so, something like that. Don't quote me on it, but I know that's really easy information to find if you Google it. I really did enjoy the first one. I really remember feeling like it was a very different premise than anything that I'd read before. But again, I was in like middle school, so I didn't have that much experience to be able to say that, oh, this was so different. However, I do remember enjoying it. I remember the first book being more simple and less complex, and the story got more complex obviously as the series continued. So I do remember having an easier time with this one than with the rest of them. And I have heard that after the 4th book is when things get really good, but I think I only read the first 4 or 5 of this series. So I would love to finish it at some point. Obviously, I'm not going to try to finish this quickly because these books are like 500 to 700 pages long, and there's like 15 of them, and it is a epic world. But again, I want to reread this. I want to see if I'm gonna like the first one again, and if I do, then I want to continue on and read the next few in the series. So this is an old cover, an original cover of this, and it's in like just like a regular paperback edition, not a mass market paperback, because I hate raking spines. But I do know that they're also coming out with new versions of the covers, and those are really stunning too. So we'll see, but stay tuned because I might do a reading vlog for this one and just kind of compare what memories I have stored about reading this book when I was younger versus what it's like reading it now. So yeah, really looking forward to this one. Then I'm also doing a buddy read with a few other of my booktube friends. We're reading the Serpent and Dove book by Shelby Mahurin this month because Gods and Monsters just came out, I think, this week, which is the third in the trilogy. So we're reading that. We're reading one every month. I've already read Serpent and Dove. I didn't love it. I found it quite ridiculous, but I want to reread it again and see if I'm going to enjoy it and how I feel about it. I might skip the reread for the second one because I read that kind of recently and then read the third one because I do want to see how the trilogy ends, even though it wasn't my favorite. But the first book, I was just like, what is happening? So that's going to be something that I'm going to reread. And then I'm going to try to add Crooked Kingdom for August. This was supposed to be a June read and I just didn't get to it, but I might need, because I'm reading some really epic-ish over here, I might need something a little just more fun and more fluffy, and I might just add Crooked Kingdom because I really need to know what happens, and it's about time. And everyone's read this book, so I'm not going to go over it, but I am very excited to finally be getting into this because, yeah, I really need, I want to read King of Scars, so I want to finish the Six of Crows series, even though it is also very good, but I need more Nikolai in my life, you know? The next buddy read that we're doing over on the Atlantis Discord is The Traitor Queen by Danielle L. Jensen. This is the continuation of The Abridged Kingdom, which is an enemies to lovers fantasy romance story. I'm almost done with it. I paused because she put in a trope which I really hate, but I will be continuing on because so far for the first like 85% I really enjoyed it. It's about basically a woman who has to get married off to a king from another kingdom, and she has been basically trained her whole life to kill him, and thus begins our story. Right after she marries him, she starts her quest and, well, things happen. So I am going to be reading the second one in that duology. I'm very excited because I did really enjoy it, and I do think it's really fun to read those enemies to lovers fantasy romance books. And so far this one, of course, like I said, it did not disappoint. So if you do want to join us, please go ahead and click on the Atlantis Discord. I'll link that down below and you can join us for that buddy read in August. The last and final book that I'm going to try to get to was a July pick, and that was Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This has been a very hot book, I have to say. I feel like people are reading it. It's been recommended by other fantasy authors, and the second one in this trilogy comes out in October, so it's coming out really soon, and I definitely want to read the first one around now so that I can be kind of fresh when the other one comes out, which is The Gilded Cage. This is basically about a prison healer that takes the queen's place because she's very ill in these games that the queen has been signed up to play, and they are quite dangerous games as well. And I think that there is a strong romance element in this one also, so that is very exciting, and I've just heard really amazing things about this from people who have read it, and it seems very high stakes, which I do appreciate in a book. It's also super gorgeous with this super gorgeous sprayed edge with the key here. I really enjoy that. So that's it for the August TBR. I think that there are way more books than I anticipated actually reading, but I just kept on being like, oh yeah, I need to read this one, and I'm gonna read this one too. And now this one would be a good one to add to the mix as well. So there are definitely a lot of books on this. I'm hoping to get to as many as possible this month, but stay tuned. If you like this video, please go ahead and click that like button, as it does really help support my channel. And if you like this content and you want to see more content from me, please don't hesitate to click that subscribe button.